Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Truth for Life. I'm Dr. Mark Sandoval, and today we are going to be looking at acceptance and surrender together. The Bible says in 1 John 5 and verse 4, "This is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith." So we're going to look at faith for a little bit here and seek to understand it from a law standpoint. Remember, there's a fundamental law of all nature, and that fundamental law says that nothing exists or functions from itself. Nothing exists or functions for itself. In other words, everything takes in order to give. This is the law of life, taking to give, and everything functions like a channel in creation. There is an entrance and an exit. The taking is at the entrance. The giving is at the exit. And cause comes at the entrance, and effect is at the exit. Everything and every channel produces nothing of its own. It only has, while it's in the process, has anything while it's in the process of taking and giving, and it keeps nothing for itself. Now, it's a good review. We need to come back to this often to evaluate. We want to have a firm basis upon which we evaluate all information. Remember, you were created as an intelligent creature with self-government, and you self-govern according to identity. You have a source that you bind yourself to by trust, and then by faith, you take what you need from your source. Then you can supply what you need. God is the source, and that He created Adam and Eve, with God as their source. And by faith, taking what they need, trusting or knowing that they are His children, and their needs were fulfilled when they took from God, and that was pleasurable to fulfill their needs, and they then gave what they took from God, which was pleasurable as well. And so the faith comes at the beginning of the channel, and works come at the end of the channel. And so we get the idea of faith and works. That's right. And you cannot be forced. So, a question about the hose. And the first question about the hose is, does the hose have water in it? The answer would be, well, yes. Okay. And will the hose always have water in it? Okay. Question for you to answer. Can the hose give water without having water? Okay. Why is water coming out of the hose? And what went into the hose, and how can you know? What went into the hose, and how can you know? So, does the hose have water in it? Well, the answer would be yes. And how do you know? Because water's coming out of it. And will the hose always have water in it? Only if it's always taking. Can the hose give water without having water? No. And why is the water coming out? Because water's going in. And what went into the hose? Water. And how can you know? Because that's what's coming out of it. So, what you take, you have, and you'll have it temporarily. And what you have, you give eventually. And the taking always comes before the giving. There's no exception to that. There's always the taking before the giving. And what you take determines what you will give. So the giving reveals what the taking was. Right? So let's put that in terms of faith and works. You take by faith, so it's by faith that you have something. And what you have, you will give. And giving is your works. So faith always comes before works. And faith determines what your works will be. So your works reveal your faith. So that's how it works. Right? And it's by law, and it must go in that order. And so if you take, by faith, the righteousness of Christ, then you will work his righteousness in your life. Right? But it will be by his righteousness, not by yours. So here's Andrew. Andrew is a dedicated Christian, and he studies the Bible late into the night. He wakes up early to pray. And yes, he's tired, but he keeps pressing on. And everybody considers Andrew to be a dedicated Christian. But Andrew doesn't have peace. And that's a problem. You see, there are always these nagging thoughts in Andrew's mind. Am I doing enough? Will God be pleased with me now? And am I good enough to make it? And there are those other thoughts that run through his mind all the time, and that is, oh, it's not enough, you have to do more. Oh, God will never be pleased with you. And you, oh, you'll never be good enough. So, what is Andrew's problem? Well, he is trying to deserve or earn his salvation. Not consciously, it's not purposefully, but that's just where he's at. He's trying to be good enough to earn God's approval, to earn God's forgiveness, his acceptance, and his salvation. And until he feels good enough, he won't accept the gift. So, who is he relying upon? Who is his Savior? He's relying upon himself, his own feelings. Now, God created the plan of salvation, and he is responsible for its completion, its completeness. And he offers the plan of salvation to anyone and everyone who will accept it. Now, he offers it to even those who won't accept it, so it's offered to everybody, but that gift is made available, and that gift includes everything that you need. And everyone has an opportunity to accept that gift for themselves. And the accepting of the gift is by faith. The gift is offered to you. It's not forced upon you. And you can only truly appreciate something that is offered to you. You will never appreciate what is forced upon you, however good it may seem to be. So God doesn't offer you the gift because you deserve it. He offers you the gift because you need it. And you cannot pay for, you cannot deserve the gift before you accept it. You cannot be good enough by anything that you can think, say, or do before you accept the gift. And you cannot pay for the gift after you accept it by serving good enough, serving long enough, and so on. The gift is free. It is not a wage. Right? It's a free gift. If it was a wage, it wouldn't be a gift. So to try to pay for it is to completely underestimate its value. You think that you can do something now, or you can do something throughout all of eternity that would equal or excel the value of the gift. So to try to pay for it is to completely misunderstand the purpose of the gift. The gift was not made and made available to you to put you into bondage so that you might have to serve for the rest of your life in some form of servitude. It was created to set you free. But oftentimes we think it was for bondage. Here you have a young man, in his little bit later teenage years, and sometimes it can get a little problematic when you are in those teenage years. And his birthday is coming up soon, and there is something that he wants for his birthday. And yes, his parents have sufficient means to be able to get him that wish, but he has not been proving himself to be so responsible in his life. Right? And so he's been begging and he's been begging. There has been contention, there's conflict, there's, he's pushing for his freedom in his own way, and parents have been struggling about what to do in regards to that birthday gift. And they decide what they're going to do. And when his birthday comes, they give him a present, and the present includes a Bible. Well, his son is not excited. He wanted the car, not the Bible. And he doesn't even bother to open the gift. He just kind of meekly thanks his parents, goes through the birthday routines, and that night, that was the last straw. He leaves. And he heads off into the world. He's had enough of his parents, enough of their restrictions. He's going to go try and find his freedom somewhere else. And he never comes back until after his parents have passed away. And there's a need to go through all of the things that are left behind and to decide what goes where. And as he is rummaging through the things that are there, he finds the last present that was given to him that he didn't open. And in a different mindset, and he opens up the gift this time. And he rambles through the Bible. Written in the front is a for, and his name was on there from mom and dad, and so on. And he notices there's something in the bottom of the box under where the Bible was. And he sees that there's a key. A key for the car he wanted. Now, let me ask you the question. Did the son accept the gift when the gift was offered to him? No. So, did the son get to enjoy or experience the gift? No. You have to accept the gift in order to be able to enjoy or experience the gift. So, do you accept a gift that you already have? Is that how it goes? Or do you accept a gift that you don't have yet? Faith is what accepts the spiritual gifts and what brings in the spiritual needs that you have. So does faith accept the gift after you have the gift, or does faith accept the gift before you have the gift? All right. Faith accepts the gift before you have it, because it's the process of receiving it. It's how you accept it. And when do you experience the gift? When do you get to have the joy of the gift, the experience of the gift? Do you have that before or after accepting it? Well, the experience comes after. So faith must accept the gift before you have it, and you can only experience the gift after you have it. So if you wait for the experience of the gift before you accept the gift, you will never accept the gift. You must accept the gift before you can experience it, and it only works in that order, and it always works in that order. So, why is it that you accept the gift? Do you accept it because you feel like you have it already? No, you accept it because you believe. You believe that the gift is available to you and that you need it and that it's a gain to you. Because again, the heart always goes after gain. So here's Alice. And Alice, she struggles in her walk with God. She has a difficult past. There's a lot of regrets that she struggles with from day to day. And she longs to be forgiven. She yearns for forgiveness. She wants that forgiveness. And she pleads with God to forgive her. And she's constantly pleading with him for that forgiveness. But she continues to feel guilty, and she believes that she remains guilty because she feels guilty. And she thinks, if my guilt was removed, I wouldn't feel this way. Well, might sound familiar to a number of us. So what is Alice's problem? She's waiting for the experience of forgiveness before she will believe that she is forgiven. So how long is she going to have to wait? Who will make sure she feels unforgiven? The enemy will. And what is she relying upon? She's relying upon her own feelings. And who is her savior? Herself. So if you won't accept God's gift of forgiveness and salvation because you aren't good enough, if you won't accept it because you will never be good enough, if you won't accept it because it isn't fair, you didn't deserve it, if you won't accept it for whatever reason, then you will never accept the gift, you will never be free, and you will never experience the gift. Because you can only experience the gift after you accept it. Again, faith accepts what it does not have. So when do you accept Jesus' perfection? When you are still defiled by sin. When do you accept forgiveness? When you are still guilty. When do you accept power to keep going on? When you have no more power to go on. When do you accept joy? When you are still sad. When do you accept victory over temptation? When you still desire the wrong things. When do you accept unselfish love for others? It's when you're still drowning in selfishness. You don't accept it because you already have it. You don't accept it because you deserve it. You accept it because He wants it for you and He offers it to you now. You accept it because you need it. That's why you accept the gift. So you don't accept the gift based upon a feeling that you have or that you don't have. You accept it solely based upon the promise of the one who is offering you the gift. And you don't receive the gift because you feel that you have it. You don't receive the gift when you experience the effects of the gift. You receive the gift when you believe that you have it, when you believe the promise itself, even though you have no experience in the gift. The experience of the gift only comes after you accept it. The experience of the gift only comes after you accept the gift. Can you be unselfish, meaning doing things unselfishly, and doing unselfish things unselfishly? Can you be unselfish before you have unselfishness? Well, no. Can you be righteous before you have righteousness? No. Can you be compassionate before you have compassion? No, that doesn't work that way. So you must have it before you can do it, or before you can give it. So you must accept it before you can have it. So faith accepts the gift before you can act upon the gift. Right? Faith accepts the gift before you have the experience of the gift. Faith accepts the gift based solely upon the promise of the gift, and faith causes you to act upon or to rely upon the promise before you have any evidence of having received the promise. Faith will step on the bridge before you have tested it. Now, that's faith and works, but there's a problem called faith as works. You see, faith is the result of trust in the one that you are taking from. And if you trust God, you will rely upon Him, you will cooperate with Him, and you will accept His plan for your life. Faith is not the hand that rubs the genie lamp so that you can get your 3 wishes. Right? My faith does not obligate God to do what I desire Him to do, as if God were my servant. It's not a tool by which I control God in order to get my outcomes. But oftentimes people use faith that way. That's what they see it to be. When I was taking care of patients at Uchee Pines Institute, it was the lifestyle center that I was working at in southern United States, and there was a young lady. She was in her early 30s, and she had breast cancer. Her breast cancer was metastatic, and she came to our facility along with her mother, and both of them were praising God and hallelujah for all that God was going to do for her and how God was going to heal her and so on. And I was excited about this, because a lot of times people come in and they're down and they're dejected and they are just, it's hard when you come in with a terminal condition. But here they are, they're praising God and they're hallelujah, and they know God's going to heal her, and they wouldn't allow anybody to say the C word around her, cancer. They're not going to claim it. They're going to, they're claiming God's promises and so on. And as I got to interact with them a bit more, I realized that you just couldn't get anywhere with them. They were always claiming faith, but you couldn't have any real significant conversations with them about heart issues, because anytime you try to have a real type of conversation, the faith wall goes up. And I realized that something was amiss here. Now, the young lady with the cancer, she was getting worse while she was with us. More short of breath, weaker, heart rate going up. I was more concerned about her situation, and I wanted to talk with her about heart issues to understand what's going on in her heart, what she understands, and how her relationship with God is. And I wanted to see, and sometimes that means that we get to ask questions like, well, what if this doesn't work? What if every intervention that you try doesn't succeed? What if you continue to go on and you die? What then? And I want to know these things because I want to know whether they are okay with God. Because if you're okay with God, God can say, okay, yeah, it's time to rest, and you're okay with going to rest. Or God can say, okay, no, I'm going to get you through this, and you're okay with getting through this. But they wouldn't have that conversation, and Mom was kind of running, she was kind of the one cutting down or shutting off conversations. So I tried to arrange things so that I could have time alone with the daughter and have a conversation with her about these things. And so I did, but even the daughter wasn't really open to it. Finally, she was getting so bad, I said, no, you have to go to the hospital. We will not continue to treat you here. You have to go to the hospital and get this checked out because you are just significantly getting worse. And when they had to, okay, well then they went. And come to find out, she had a pericardial effusion. So that means that she had fluid that was developing around the heart, inside the sac around the heart, and it was compressing the heart and making it so that the heart couldn't fill up and fill with blood. And so it had to pump faster and faster and faster to try to keep blood going forward. All right, so she was sent to the emergency department, and there they discovered that she had that fluid around the heart. And that fluid around the heart was building up and compressing the heart and making it so that she couldn't pump blood like she needed to. So they set her up in the morning to have interventional radiology, stick a needle in there and pull out the fluid so that it could decompress that and give the heart room to beat. She died when they were starting the procedure. And we found out, and the mother called and in tears, and we went there to the hospital to be with her, and the mother was just going around, I don't know, how could this happen? This cannot be. This can't be real. This can't be real. This can't be. We believed. We had faith. This can't be real. You see, in their case, their faith was what they were trying to use to get God to give them a certain outcome, rather than faith being what holds on to God regardless of the outcome. So there's faith and works. There's faith that as works, and then there's a faith that works. Right? So faith is not a tool to manipulate God. Faith is simply that which accepts the gifts of God's grace. And it is that which brings into myself what I need spiritually so that it becomes mine. Now I have it. The gift is created and made available to you by God's grace, so grace always goes first. The gift is always accepted by faith after it is offered, so faith is always second. And what you do, what you give, depends upon what you took by faith, so faith always goes before works. So works always comes third. It's always grace, and then faith, and then works. It's always in that way. It is never works that then prove your faith, by which you obtain grace. So what are some common pitfalls in acceptance? Well, some common pitfalls in acceptance are trying to pay for or trying to deserve the gift before you accept it. And that is a self-righteousness. I'm relying upon my own works or my own righteousness in order to deserve or merit this gift. Or I plan on paying for or deserving the gift after I accept it. Again, that is still works-based, that is still self-righteousness, but I'm just planning on doing it afterwards. So now I'm going to enter into a working contractual relationship with God, and this acceptance of the gift is now going to bind me into servitude rather than set me free. Another common pitfall is refusing to accept the gift because I don't deserve it. And that is a false humility. Sure, you don't deserve it. That's why the gift is offered to you. Another pitfall is waiting for the experience of the gift before you accept the gift. That's a self-reliance. And finally, it's using faith as a tool to control God in order to get the outcomes I desire. All of these are pitfalls in accepting the gift that God offers to us by His grace. James 4 and verse 10 says, "Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and He will lift you up." Matthew 26 and 39 also says, "He went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." So let's talk about surrender. Surrender is an important topic. We need to understand this one because it's involved in, salvation process, and it's involved in our overcoming. So what is surrender? Is it a feeling? Is it an action? Is it something that's hard? Or is it something that's easy? And what is involved in surrender? Many times we think of surrender in the wrong terms, because we think of surrender in the terms of war. You see, surrender is different than forced submission. It has nothing to do with domineering. True surrender is depending upon and willingly cooperating with someone because I agree with them. And I agree with their plans that involve me. So in reality, surrender is simply agreement that brings me into harmony with someone or some plan. To surrender to God, I must willingly agree with Him and the plans or the tasks that He has for me. And I do so because I see that my needs are fulfilled through His will, and that His will is gain to me and to others, and that it's good, that it's right, and I agree with it. And when I come to that conclusion, well, I will surrender. But I cannot surrender to that which I don't agree with. And I cannot surrender to what I perceive is a loss. And I can only surrender to what I perceive is a gain. Surrender, therefore, requires information. You can't surrender to what you don't know about. So you must know about what you are surrendering to, and you must have enough information to surrender, but I'll tell you this, you'll never have as much as you want. You will never have all the information before you surrender, because if you did, well, anyways, the intellect could make the decision if you had all the information, but this is a decision that only faith can make. If you wait for all your questions and uncertainties to be answered before you surrender, you're never going to surrender. So there always is some form of uncertainty in anything that you surrender to. Charles Blondin was a famous tightrope artist of the mid-1800s. He was a Frenchman, and he lived in worked in the circus and was an acrobat and a tightrope artist, and moved to the United States in the early to mid-1800s, and he worked with Barnum and Bailey and some of the major circuses that were there. And on June 30, 1859, Charles Blondin was the first individual to attempt to cross Niagara Falls on a tightrope. Where he chose to cross, it was about 1,100 feet across, or close to 400 meters. And it was at its lowest point, about 15 and a half stories above the canyon below. It was a 2.5 to 3 inch hemp rope that was tied to a large tree on the American side and a large boulder on the Canadian side, and a few guy wires along each side, but not in the middle, to kind of help steady it. And Charles Blondin had a good publicizer, and so 25,000 people showed up to watch Charles Blondin cross Niagara Falls on a tightrope. And he began his act on the American side, and he had a 50-pound balance bar, and he used that, and he starts nimbly walking, working his way across to the other side. And of course he did fine, and he put down the balance bar, and then he used his arms, to balance him, and he walked back across to the American side, and then he got a wheelbarrow, and he put the wheel of that wheelbarrow on the line, and he pushed that wheelbarrow across from the United States to Canada, safely across the line. Now, in his entire career, Charles Blondin crossed Niagara Falls over 300 times. Not that day, but of course in his entire career. And he did some marvelous feats. One time he went off, he was blindfolded, with a gunny sack tied around his head, and he went across. Another time he had a person on his back. It was Harry, his manager. And another time he went across on stilts. And he was really good at what he did. Now, the story is told that one day Charles Blondin was doing his act at the canyon, and he had done he was up there juggling and whatever, and then for his grand finale he did a flip and landed on the line, and of course the crowd is oohing and awing, and they want more. They want an encore. And so Charles is trying to think of what he can do for the crowd, and either to increase the danger or to disperse the crowd. And so he thinks about something, and he says, and he calls down to the audience. He says, "Okay, who believes that I can get someone safely across on the wheelbarrow?" Says, "Okay, I need a volunteer. No volunteers. Right? You see, it's one thing to say that you believe that he can do it. It's another thing to get into the wheelbarrow. You stand on the edge of a canyon like that, and you see several hundred feet below and rocks and all that kind of stuff, and you drop a pebble and you go, oh. And then you think about getting into a wheelbarrow that's sitting there in front of you, and you're like, that's a whole different level. Faith does not just stand on the ground and say, yeah, I believe you can get me across. Faith gets into the wheelbarrow. And of course, the canyon is made by sin. It separates us from God and victory. The canyon is spanned by the perfect life of Christ. And he stands there on the tightrope of his life, and with a wheelbarrow that represents faith, and he says, come on, get in. I'll take you across to the other side. And the question is, will you intellectually believe, yeah, I think you can do it? Or will you actually get into the wheelbarrow? So here we are in the land of defeat. Right? And in the land of defeat, there's across the canyon on the other side, the land of victory. So we have the land of defeat and the land of victory. And over there in the land of victory, it has nice stuff like victory and freedom and purpose and love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. It's got all these beautiful things over there in the land of victory. And here I am on this side, and I want it. But down in the canyon is suffering, defeat, failure, pain, loss, vulnerability, and problems. And I want that on the other side. That's got death down here, and I fear this on this side. What happens if I'm comfortable where I am? What will be the result? Well, I'm going to stay where I am. If I'm comfortable where I am, I'm going to stay where I am. What if I'm unaware of the good things that are available on the other side of the canyon? Well, again, I'm going to stay where I am. What if I think it's impossible to get across to the other side, even though I might be aware of it and I want it? I'm going to stay where I am. But what if where I am, I then have stress, and I have self-hatred, and I have failure, and I have bitterness, and I have disease, and I have addictions, and I have guilt, and I have problems, and I have meaninglessness. And all of these things are here that I have, and I hate them. I hate what I've got. I fear what's in between, but I want what's on the other side. What will make me choose? Well, if it's impossible and there's no way to get across, there's no choice to make. But Jesus comes, and he spans that canyon with his life, and he stands there on the tightrope with the wheelbarrow, and he says, come on, get in. I'll take you across to the other side. And so Jesus makes the impossible possible. He makes the impossible possible. Now there's something you can choose. But there's still a lot of factors involved in the choice. What is it that might get you into the wheelbarrow? As you might be calculating already, it's going to be a combination of how bad do you want this, how much do you fear this, and how much do you hate this. Now, if you're standing on the edge of the canyon and you see the wheelbarrow and you think, wow, if I get in there, it might tip and I might go, and so out of fear of what may come and what may happen, you don't get into the wheelbarrow. What happens if the bear starts coming after you? And the bear gets closer and closer and closer. You might get motivated to get into the wheelbarrow. And some people might be motivated just by seeing the bear to get into the wheelbarrow, and others might have to be mauled by the bear before they get into the wheelbarrow. So, no matter how bad I hate what I have in the land of defeat, no matter how much I want to have what I don't have in the land of victory, if I believe that it is impossible to get across to the other side, then there is no getting into the wheelbarrow. There's no getting into the wheelbarrow. So in that case, I need information about the way of escape. I need Jesus' wheelbarrow, the plan of salvation. I need to know about that so that I can go free. And I need testimonies of others that I believe were at least as bad as I was, or worse than me, that got into the wheelbarrow and how their lives turned out. So I need to know about the gospel, and I need testimonies of others. Now, when what I hate in the land of defeat plus what I want in the land of victory, in the context of knowing that it's possible, when that is less than what I fear down in the canyon, I'm not getting into the wheelbarrow. Because my fear keeps me out. And so in that case, I need information about how my fears of the unknown are not as bad as I think that they are. Even though the fears will not be eliminated before getting into the wheelbarrow. And I need testimonies of others who have gotten into the wheelbarrow and how it turned out for them. And I need information about how wonderful things are in the land of victory. All of those are encouragements for me that I need in the choice of getting into the wheelbarrow. And I don't need anyone to make me more comfortable in my current situation. Now, my fear of the unknown will never be eliminated before getting into the wheelbarrow. Never. To get into the wheelbarrow, I must be willing to face any and every possibility that comes by getting into the wheelbarrow. And if I'm not willing to give up something, if I'm not willing to face something, if I'm not willing to go somewhere, if I'm not willing to do something, if God asks me to in order to set me free, I'm not getting in. There's something I'm still holding on to that I'm not willing to surrender. But when what I hate in the land of defeat plus what I want in the land of victory is greater than what I fear in the canyon below, that's when I get into the wheelbarrow. Because I must come to the place where getting into the wheelbarrow finally is gain. Otherwise, I won't make the decision. And the more I trust Jesus, the easier the decision is. And oftentimes, the better my childhood was, the easier the decision. And if my parents, and especially my father, were hellish, that's a really hard decision. Because there's the idea that God is just as hellish, and he's just egging you on to get you into the wheelbarrow so he can flip you. And you go poof. So, What happens when the bear gets too close? When I hate this so much, I want that so much, I finally overcome my fear of this in between? Well, then I get into the wheelbarrow. But I only thought it was a wheelbarrow. In reality, I get on the tightrope myself. And Jesus is there with me, and he gives me balance. I don't actually give up control of my life. He created me to control my life. He created me with self-government. I don't give up that self-government when I get into the wheelbarrow. I simply surrender my self-government to him. I agree with him that what he wants for me is right, and it's going to work out better than what I have been doing for myself. And okay, I'm going to follow you on this journey. So, what is in your life that is not surrendered to God? Is there something that's keeping you from getting into the wheelbarrow? Something that you know he's been asking for, but until now you haven't been willing to surrender it? Is it an addiction? Is it a relationship? Is it a dream? Are they plans? Is it an identity? Is it a grudge? A possession? A fear? Is it control? What is it? Now, I grew up, now, of course I did, I'm not a little baby anymore, but I grew up in a Christian home, and I grew up going to church, and I grew up learning about God and hearing of him. And that life was slightly challenging. I liked what I understood and what I heard about God. But I grew up in a place and a location where there was lots of entertainment. There were lots of distractions. I grew up in Central Florida, and in Central Florida you have Disney World, and you have Epcot Center, and you have Hard Rock Cafe, and you have Islands of Adventure, and you have Wet n Wild, and you have all sorts of theme parks and all sorts of things like that, and there's all sorts of entertainment that you can find, and anything to take your attention off of God and put it on the world. Well, that's what I had. And family loved to come and visit us because we would be, they could stay at our place, and then we could take them on, touring all the places. And we didn't need maps when we went to the different theme parks, and we had annual passes to them. And they'd go to Disney World, and they're like, "Here, do you want a pass? You want a map?" "No, thanks. I know exactly where I'm going, and I know when I want to go there, because I know you don't want to go to Pirates of the Caribbean at this time, and you don't want to go to Space Mountain at this time, and you don't want to, That's just how it was. And so I had, on one side, I had the God side, and on the other side, I had the world side. And I had friends, and those friends had certain types of, habits and other things like that. And I began to pick those up as well. And I found myself over time with more and more problems and more addictions. But I could hide them well. And so I did well on the outside while I was dying on the inside. And I looked good on the outside while things were not good at all on the inside. And I was active, and I was involved in church, and I even was one of two of the youth that helped our church develop a third church service, because the church I went to had about 2,500 members, and it was getting too full for two services, and so we were planning a third one, and so I helped with that, and I helped with music, and I was, in leadership positions going through schooling, and I did Christian education from my kindergarten all the way through my doctoral training. Right. All the way through. Christian educated. Like Paul, I could say, well, I'm a a Jew of the Jews, I'm of the tribe of Benjamin. He said, I'm the tribe of Sandoval, and I could claim all of these wonderful different things. And I went to this university and that place, and I'm a Loma Linda graduate, and all that kind of stuff. And yet I continued to struggle with these things. Now, it wasn't a problem of the educational system that I went through. There were wonderful people along the way. There were teachers that cared for us. There were Bible teachers, there were pastors and others that were there, but it was me. It was my life. It was my issue. I oftentimes did not want to admit that I had a problem because I had such a good persona to others around. And I needed to try to maintain that good persona, except with close friends and, and so on. And so that continued. The problems continued through high school into college. I met my wife, and, we did some student mission years. We got married and so on. And that was a wonderful blessing. But problems continued, and I still struggled with the addictions, and I still struggled with things in the background, and I was easily angered, and there were times when I put holes through doors or holes through walls, and so on, because I just couldn't control my anger, and life was. I was pursuing my goals, but life was falling apart at the same time that I was pursuing goals. And so I went through my medical school training. Things got darker, more difficult. We switched, and then I started my emergency medicine training program as well. And it just got darker and more difficult. And yes, I was still functioning. I was still functioning on a work level, but things in the relationship were not going so well. By that point, we had 2 children. I was not relating with the children well, especially number 1. I just had issues with her. I didn't realize it until later why I had issues with her. But the reason was because my parents had divorced when I was younger, when I was in my early teens. And while my parents split, I remained a child to either of them. And so I realized that the parent-child relationship was stronger than the parent-parent, the spouse relationship. And I idolized my wife. She was my idol. And I wanted nothing to come between her and I. And in fact, I was not interested in having children, although I said I was okay with having 2, but that's just because she wanted children. But I really wasn't interested in having children. I just wanted her. And so, oh, yes. So I was jealous of my daughter, because I was afraid here now somebody came into the relationship that had stronger claims upon my wife than I did. And so I didn't know this. It was unconscious to me, but I related to her this way, and I think she picked it up as well, and we did not get along well with each other. And so I had struggles in I loved marriage, but I hated parenting. I really did. And so it just continued going, and it got worse, and I finally got to the point where, I was fed up. I didn't have any way out of what I was in. I was stuck. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated my choices. I hated my mind. I hated the thoughts that were running through my head. I hated my failures. I hated all of it. And I had come to the point where I was ready to leave my wife. I was ready to leave the children. God wasn't working. Church wasn't working. None of it was working. And I was just going to just let it go. And it's got to be easier just to give in to the addictions than to try to fight. And it was at that time that everything blew up. It just blew up. And I found myself in a situation I couldn't lie my way out. I couldn't think my way out. I couldn't figure my way out. I was stuck, absolutely stuck. And it was in the context of that I was challenged to surrender all. To surrender all. I thought I had in years past. But until I came up to the challenge, I didn't realize, I was still holding on to things. And the biggest thing I was holding on to was my wife. She was my idol. And now, in the process of going free from these addictions, I was challenged to be transparent, to be completely transparent in regards to my life and everything that had been gone on in my life and entailed and so on and so forth, so that there wouldn't be any secrets between us. And that frightened me to death, because I had accepted a lie when I was younger. Didn't know it, but I had accepted a lie that I hate myself. And if anyone knows me as well as I know myself, they'll hate me like I hate myself. And I would have left myself long ago, but I couldn't get out of my skin. But if I let somebody else know who I am and what I'm like, they would leave me. And I didn't want her to know who I really was, because if I did, she would leave me. And now I was challenged. Am I willing to do anything and everything that God may ask me to do in order to be free? And am I willing to be transparent, even if it's the end of our relationship? And I struggled. I really struggled with that. And I said, God, I don't know if I can trust you like that. And he said, how's it going with you in control? You know how it's going with me in control. I hate myself. I fail at everything that I do. I hurt everyone that I love, and I'm losing everything. And he said, why don't you just give me a chance? Get in the wheelbarrow. I can set you free. Oh, God, but I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what you're going to make me do. I don't know where you're going to make me go. I don't know what you're going to... I don't know. He says, okay. If you remain in control, you're going to lose everything. But if you let me have control, you might not. And finally, I made the decision, whatever it takes in order to be free, whatever God asks me to do, I will do it. I just have to be free. And I did some things, and I was transparent in regards to my life and things that I had kept secret and so on. And when I did, I thought for sure I was going to lose her. But she said, no matter what, we're going to go through this together. And that, I broke, and I just began to cry and cry and cry and cry, and all this pain that had been pent up, all of this emptiness, all this loneliness, all of this hurt flowing out. And that was the beginning of a change. It was the beginning of a transformation in my life, where it had been attempt and failure and attempt and failure and attempt and failure. And now things began to go in a different direction, because now I was willing to follow God anywhere he led in the process of setting me free. I didn't have anything left on my list. And if you're struggling, I bid you look to the one who died for you, and look into his eyes and see what he left for you and what he gave up for you, and you leave everything for him.